podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I am Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Special, spectacular, and to be perfectly honest, fed up with the thunderstorms. Can they stop now?
So, just to warn people in advance, this podcast might get interrupted by the fact that Karl is waiting for Gareth Southgate to get his arse in gear. So we may have to have a big cut in the middle of it, which you'll notice. But hopefully Gareth will just wait until we're finished. Mr. Matchett, I start with this. Wayne Rooney and Gary Neville have both said that in their opinion, Harry Kane is the greatest England player of all time. Now, I assume they mean England as in just for the national team. I still, however, think that is an asinine claim. I don't think he's one of the 5 best England players of all time. What do you say?
No, regardless of whether that is English players or English players for England. No, I would disagree with in both cases, to be honest. Obviously, the record goals is a huge thing, and I get that, and it's absolutely warranted for it to be in any conversation as such because he holds that title, but it wouldn't be for me.
I can kind of understand Neville making this nonsensical claim because he is the same imbecile who tries to claim Cristiano Ronaldo as the greatest player of all time, despite not being the best player of his own generation. And he puts far too much emphasis on goals. But, like, if you think historically, you obviously start with Bobby Charlton and Bobby Moore, and they set a bar. Then you would look through at people like Bobby Robson. I think you'd have to look at Rooney himself. And I think there's probably 5 or 6 others that would have to come in to strong consideration. And that's if we just started like the 66 team and come from there. If we look beyond that at Sir Tom Finney, Sir Stanley Matthews, Nat Lofthouse, people like that, I just don't really think there's any case for Kane to be considered England's greatest ever player.
No, I would agree. Apart from, if you're going to be judging it on goals, you probably also have to take into account winning or getting places with things. He hasn't yet. Obviously, that would add to his argument if England do so. But no, I think on a technical level, there are a number who I would put ahead of him, and even like performances for England in big occasions, I would still say there are others who would be there.
Yeah, I think so. I think just to throw in 2 more names, Edmund Hughes, an absolute all-time great, and Sir Trevor Brookie, another phenomenal footballer in his time, obviously West Ham legend as well, but his England career was very, very special as well. They didn't play nearly enough, only the 47 caps, but he was incredibly good for England. Right, let's move on. We have a European Championship final this weekend. It is England. It is Spain. Spain come in, I think, as, given what's happened in the tournament, pretty strong favourites. However, I would suggest that before the tournament, if you had said, this is what the final will be, many people would have said, okay, well, England will win that final because they're the more talented team, the more talented squad. How do you see this one standing up?
From the perspective of now or pre-tournament?
Both. What would you've looked at it? How would you've looked at it pre-tournament, and how would you look at it now?
Pre-tournament, I would have looked at it by suggesting the person who mentioned it go and maybe make a doctor's appointment, if I'm being perfectly honest. This Spain team were not ready in terms of their matches in the build-up, in terms of their matches in like the end of last year and into the start of this year. They weren't ready to be at this level. They were nowhere near this level. This is a big step they've taken, whether in the group that they had and the way they've prepared for the tournament, whether in meetings as they've gone on, whether it's just the first performance that helped them click, where they clearly all saw that they had the right job and the right way of going about it and all the rest of it. This Spain now of like the quarterfinals, semi-finals doesn't compare to Spain of October and March. It just doesn't. I would also actually say that England of the semi-finals and less the quarterfinals, but let's say the quarterfinals end result and the semi-final showing, let's say, didn't really represent England actually either, because although England were strong and very good for quite a long time there, last year wasn't great for England. Like they had a fairly average run, I think we can say. Results-wise, there was a couple of games. Was it Belgium? They scored a last-minute equaliser. They were beaten by Iceland in the friendly, really, really terrible before the Euros. They lost to Brazil with fine performance, but not a great one. There was a draw with Macedonia. Like, they weren't great. They weren't as good as they had been for, I would say, the couple of years previously at just finding a way to just be stronger and better than other teams. You can argue probably that the quarterfinal Switzerland finding a way and the mentality and all the rest of it sort of ties in a little bit to just bouldering their way through the group, beating Italy, finding a way against Belgium to get a result, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say especially as good over the previous 12 months for England. So I probably wouldn't have said either of these would be
in the final.
Yeah, definites for the final. Like, should they be in the semi-finals? Yeah, I'd probably go along with both of them in a normal route. But I would have been very, very surprised to have these two. I also, if I'm being completely honest and selfish, been really happy to have these two. But here we go.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Karl match at Derby, without question. Now, I will push back on the idea that England were very good in any game in this tournament. They were okay.
They were?
You said they were very good for a long stretch against the Netherlands and Switzerland, and I would push back strongly on that.
Okay, no, they were very good at it.
They were okay.
I was talking about more the mentality and the way they came back. They were very good at making their way through, sort of comparing.
I do think the mentality in the knockouts has been good. Especially in that Slovakia game where they just kept going and seemed to believe they would find an equaliser. And then obviously to start extra time the way they did and get that quick goal, I think that does speak to a mentality that is strong. We saw the penalties against Switzerland. Those were 5 lads that stepped up and knew they were scoring. Like, there was not one look of doubt on any of those five lads. They just all looked supremely confident. And that was with Harry Kane off the pitch, who's their nominal penalty taker. So I think that's very impressive. I think if it does go to penalties in this final, I think they'll be a lot more confident than they were 3 years ago. So this is their second final. They have lost the only final they were in, obviously, the last time on penalties. This will be Spain's 4th final. They won it in 64, they won in 08, and they won in 2012. They were, their 5th final. They were runners-up in 84. So I am wrong about that. They were runners-up in 84. They got to the semi-final last time out under Luis Enrique, and obviously there was a feeling of disappointment because I think there was a lot of excitement around Pedri in particular, given the season he'd had at Barca, going into this competition, doing as well as he did, but then being forced to go to the Olympics. Now we have Lamine Yamal kind of in the same role, where he is this new, sparkly young player with immense potential. You just have to hope they're more careful with him than they were of Pedri. We've talked a bunch, Karl, about this Spain squad, and the more I think about it, the more I love the setup and the balance to the team. Like, I think they've got a really good goalkeeper in Unai Simon, who's really, really flourished at Bilbao in the last 4 to 5 years, since Chelsea made the mistake of spending a world record fee on Kepa. The defence is 4 players who are between good and very good. None of them are great. Carvajal is very good. Lenormand is very good. Sometimes good, but mostly very good. Last couple of years, he's been really good for Real Sociedad. Laporte, I think, was great at his peak, but then had the knee injury. I think he's just good now, but very good on the ball. And then Cucurella, who is playing as well as he did when he was at Brighton now. He's a good to very good player. None of them are great, but they're all good to very great. There's no weak point in that defence. They're all solid, and the unit works and makes sense to me. And I really like how they give that team a strong base. You've got that brilliant midfield double pivot, which protects that defence, forces the opposition to attack into wide areas, which Spain are happy to allow, and then gives a platform to a really balanced attack with 2 very exciting wingers a hard-working striker who won't get you many goals, but he'll do everything else at a good level for you, other than time his runs, which is still a question at this point in his career, how he hasn't figured out the offside trap. And then in the 10 spot, that's been really interesting, because obviously we had Pedri early in the tournament. Now it's Dani Olmo, two very different players. But what's really interesting is that the team has functioned at an equally high level, regardless of whether it was Pedri or Dani Olmo, even though they do different things and play in different areas. I think that's the sign of a really well-coached team. And I don't see a weak point in this Spain team. I see a lot of strengths and no weak point.
Yeah, look, they have been the best set up. They have a lot of the best cohesion that we've seen at the tournament. And they definitely have the best overall playing style from a enjoyability and subjective perspective. There's no question about that. That's primarily the reason why they have got to the final. It's because they have such a clarity of the way that they're playing. They have a really good group unit because a lot of them have played together for a long time. Youth levels are progressing and now obviously becoming a team for the seniors. First tournament for a lot of them, though, which is what's really impressive about it. Like even less than the style, which in club level they're all fine with and they replicate that here. But it's really the fact that this is all brand new for a lot of them. Like obviously you've got a few key faces who are old and have been there for 500 years, like Karl, but even like some of the experienced players in that group, like Norman and Nacho, they're not like players who have been around 4 tournaments or anything like that. It is very, very much quite a new group. And I do think like that's the biggest thing that De La Fuente has done is get them all on the same page, really working hard for each other. Like as much as they do play stylistically nice football, they work sensationally hard off the ball. Like it's just relentless to watch them. And that's the biggest thing that England are going to struggle with, to be honest, because England are slow playing out from the back. England are good playing out for the back in terms of they can pass the ball well, but then do it so slowly. Spain will catch them like that if they do the same thing. I mean, we saw Xavi Simons just rampage through Declan Rice. That was an extreme example, obviously, and ended with a brilliant goal at the end of it. But the pattern of how that comes about is the same way, because England play into feet. Nobody is on the half turn when they receive the ball in those areas. They just pass to another defender on the diagonal, and then they pass out. That's how England play out. You can't do that against this Spain team because that first pass has to bypass either the first bunch of pressers or has to be instantly controlled or has to be perfectly returned first time and so on and so forth. It's that cohesion, that clarity of how to play out of possession as much as in it, which makes this Spain team really formidable, to be honest.
I think one area England do struggle in is when they try and play out from the back through midfield and Declan Rice in particular gets pressed. He isn't comfortable turning on the ball. And we've seen in a lot of games England become very stale when teams constantly force Rice to just play it back to the centre-backs and then block off passing lanes for the centre-backs and leave Rice as the only available option. And that's not where Declan Rice is strong. And Mainoo's good at receiving the ball on the turn and carrying it, but he doesn't have the passing range to really get you moving in transition. So if Spain do have a failed press, I don't feel like England are in a really strong position to punish it. And it should allow Spain to shuffle back and get back into position quite quickly. It's interesting you mentioned the age group, like this group, and you know, you look at the age profile of the squad. Now, Navas obviously stands out at 38. He's the senior citizen of the group. But then you've got this group of 30 to 34. You've got Nacho, Joselu, Carvajal, Morata, Ayoze Perez, who I can't believe is 30 and also can't believe he's in the squad, and Aymeric Laporte. But then you've got this really young group of Lamal, obviously, is an extreme example, but you've got Fermin Lopez, Pedri, Nico Williams and Alex Baena. So you've got those two groups with one extreme in each. But then you've got this really good age profile of 24 to 29, which makes up the bulk of the squad. You've got Alex Romero, the third choice keeper, David Rea, the backup keeper, Grimaldo, Fabian Ruiz, Moreno and Rodri are all 28. Lenormand, Oyarzabal, Simon, they're all 27, almost 26. Cucurella, Zubimendi, Vivian, they're all 25, and Ferran Torres is 24. Like, that's a group that is going to be able to be kept together for the next cycle. You could imagine all of those players still being in competition to be in the squad come the 2028 Euros. And then you'll have Baena, Williams, Pedri, and Fermin Lopez. They'll all be 25, 26 by then. Lamine Yamal will only be 20, which is ridiculous. He would still be the youngest player in the squad in 4 years. Like, and then there'll be another raft of young players to come in. We already know that Gavi will be back into this mix. And there's a whole bunch of other exciting young Spanish players waiting in the wings to be called up. Like, that's a very, very good thing for Spain as they look ahead to the next kind of 4 to 6 years with this group. Like, Dean Huijsen, the centre-back, you'd imagine he'll be in that mix. Rafa Marin is one I could imagine being in the mix. Christian Mosquera, I could imagine being in the mix. Pablo Torre, Pablo Barrios, Javi Guerra. These are all exceptionally good footballers. Amor Dion, the striker from Atletico Madrid, he could likely be in that mix as well. Like, it's not 08. We're not, I don't think, seeing the beginning of a team that's going to become the greatest international team of all time. But it is the type of team you could see winning another international tournament within this cycle of the next 4 to 6 years with the bulk of this squad. Like, you could easily see that happen if they can win this one and get that confidence and that experience and that belief behind them. And they already seem to have real belief that, like, I think it's a Spanish thing because the Spanish record in finals in history is incredible, but for club and country. But this team seems to believe that they're going to go and win this competition. I mean, you look at the run they've had. It's a historically hard run, while England have had a historically easy run. And yet, they've never seemed to doubt that they were going to win a game.
Yeah, look, I mean, even if they don't win, I think this is still a group which looks like, given it another 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they will challenge for further ones. Like you said, just Gavi alone coming in makes this a really, really strong group. Quality-wise level, there's a couple of them who have already been in the setup and aren't here, like Pau Cubarsí. Obviously, we'll see how he progresses, but just take out like a couple of people who won't be there in future, like Jesus Navas probably won't because he's ancient and obviously not that good, not a starter and so on. But then if you put in, just say, Pedro Porro, are you going to be that much worse off?
Oh, I didn't even think of him.
Yeah, they're still going to be as good, if not better, just by making the changes they must. Like if Maxwell now disappears and Cubarsí does come in, or
Huijsen comes in,
Garcia or Fran Garcia or whoever it is, like they'll bring in someone. On the left, if Grimaldo or Cucurella sort of fades away, Alejandro Balde over the next 4 years, probably going to be more involved. Let's be honest.
I didn't even think of him either. I didn't think of him or Cubarsí. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, there's a big group who can just come in and be a part of what they do already, and even if they don't necessarily make them stronger, which I think a couple of those would do, like Porro, for example, would be a much better option, let's say in another year or so than Navas. They're still going to be at this level. And as you mentioned on one of the recent pods, international football's not that hot. Like when Spain were absolutely the best, they had to be the best. Like they had to be that good to definitely champions. This Spain could be the champions this time, could play the exact same way and win the World Cup next time, could be the same in 4 years' time and go for another Euros. Like, even if they don't dramatically improve, we're not seeing massive evidence that anybody else is on the verge of doing so either, because France, who should be, are dreadful. England, who should be, I think better than France, but they certainly don't play to the same level. It's a very different style of winning that they have. But if England change manager, everything can change there again, for better or worse. Yeah. So Spain are at the beginning of a cycle, and I don't think losing a final comes anywhere close to ending what they could achieve. That it may even be, what would then be the reverse of England, the fuel to go on and do it next time, or the experience of learning what to do differently, and so on and so forth.
I mean, when you start naming names like Cubarsí and Balde, like they're not just good young players. They're exceptional young players to bring into this mix. I like, if you go back and look at the group in 2008, and obviously it was a very, very strong Spanish team, but, you know, I think it's comparable enough to this group. And then that group developed and more players sort of emerged, and, you know, the likes of Busquets and Pedri and that. They don't have a David Villa or Fernando Torres in this group, but overall I do think it's comparable enough. And what they would go on to achieve, and as you say, like, they're not going to have the same level of elite competition that they were facing back in 08 and 10 and in 12. International football is very poor. I mean, we're seeing that in South America. Look, I really like this Argentine team, but they're not a historically great team. And yet they may well win a third international tournament in a row, which, you know, speaks to how well they've done, but also to how poor Brazil have become, Chile have become. I mean, Colombia are good, but they're not great. Uruguay have a lot of good pieces, but not necessarily a very good starting 11. There are weak points in that 11, both fullback spots, both wing spots. Not great. The goalkeeper's okay. They've got one excellent centre-back. They've got a really good double pivot. They've got Darwin as the 9. The 10 is questionable. Like, there's talent there, but there's not a great team. You start looking ahead at the field in 2026, and you really do wonder who can stack up against Spain. You mentioned the two obvious ones, and I would throw Portugal in with them as well, in terms of sheer talent. But all three of them are being let down by their managers, and none of them are performing anywhere close to the level of the individual pieces. Whereas with Spain, it feels like the sum of the parts is actually greater than the individual pieces, despite some of those individual pieces being really special.
Yeah, I mean, international is a very different arena to team building. You have to just accept that that's the way it is now in football. And listen, two injuries to wide players in this Spain team suddenly looks very different. So it's not a catch-all. We've seen with France, it's not a guarantee of anything at all. But it's great for what it is right now. It's unexpectedly good for where they were even 6 months ago. And big opportunity for them to jumpstart on what they could achieve as a group.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like the two right backs, we've got Carvajal, like we've said, and Navas. And if they both decide to move on, you've got Pablo Porro, like you said, and you've got Arnaud Martinez at Girona, who's exceptionally good. You've also got Miguel Gutierrez, another option for left back, who's exceptionally good. Like, everywhere you look, there's real talent emerging behind this group and ready to push this group and potentially improve this group. The only one that is in the older group that you might say, well, when he goes, there's no obvious contender to step in and replace him, would be Rodri, but he's only 28. Like, he'll comfortably play at the next World Cup and the next Euros, by which point someone likely will have emerged, because you'll be talking about kids that are 14, 15 now, will be 18, 19 by then, and potentially breaking through at a Barca, an Atleti, a Valencia, a Sevilla, a Real, wherever, ready to step up.
Yamal's not got an even younger brother that we're waiting for next year, are we?
Oh, he probably does. He probably does. Like, it's just, how is a 16-year-old doing this?
17 tomorrow.
17 tomorrow. He'll be 17 when he takes the field in the final. It's silly. Let's focus on England for a second here, Karl. It's a very talented group. And we know there's a bunch of match winners in the group. Kane, Bellingham, Foden, Saka. These are players that can win any match on their own. They've all got the capability. But of the four in this tournament, I think Bukayo Saka is the only one that's performed at a consistently good level. I think Kane's been dreadful. I know he's got 3 goals, but I think he's been dreadful. I think Bellingham's been very poor by what I would expect from him. But Foden's the one that's gotten most of the criticism. Now, I would accept he's been worse than Bellingham, about even with Kane, and yet he's the one that's gotten most of the stick and the calls for him to be replaced in the team. But like, I don't understand how it's so hard for England to put these elite level players in a cohesive unit. Maybe you have to drop one, and you mentioned this on yesterday's pod. It's something England don't really do. England tend to, like, whoever the best 11 footballers are in the view of the manager, he just throws them out. I do feel like one of that front three England would be better off sitting them for this game and bringing in a Gordon or a Watkins or even a Bowen to have pace and to really trouble that Spanish defence in behind and unlock more of what Kane can offer as a playmaker. Because the front three is quite one-paced. Saka's too deep as a wing-back to really trouble them in behind, because you can't just send him forward down the right-hand side and leave Kyle Walker 1v1 with Nico Williams. Not with big amounts of space, because he will just knock it by him and burn him. And Walker doesn't have that type of pace anymore. Like, I find it hard to see what England's real avenue here is to create goals, other than potentially set pieces or maybe a counter-attack. But again, I don't know that England have the pace to hurt Spain on the counter. And Spain are certainly dark artsy enough, let's say, to stop those counters by hook or by crook.
I think that there is counter-attacking possibilities there for England. Not necessarily through speed, but through space. Like you mentioned, Maynard, he's the one in the team really who can turn into space and exploit it very quickly in terms of, you know, first touch, directionality, and then where you make your first initial movements, your runs. If you can get past not just the press of Rodri and Ruiz, but like you say, the snidiness of it as well, that's quite a big thing. That'll stop England, let's say 6-7 times out of 10 when they try to break, when they try to transition past the midfield. But I do think that there's good enough movement. Let's say the way they played first half against Netherlands, when there were more spaces there, and this is what I spoke about before that game, where I thought it would suit England more, Netherlands being the first team to attack them, really. So I do think that England will be able to get in behind the midfield, but then it is the movement. England's movement up front hasn't been good up until that first half of Netherlands. Like, Saka won't be as able to be as high upfield. He'll have to do a bit more defensive work, you'd imagine, whether that's tucked into midfield or, you know, tracking back to try and not let any overloads down his flank. But yeah, Kane dropping in, I think, is a good thing against Spain, but it is about the runners off him. Like, Bellingham hasn't really run beyond him, and he's going to have to. Like, that's just a must. If he's going to have impact in this match, it has to be by running in behind. Like, I don't mind Spain's setup, but defensively, as individual components, I still don't think that they are elite, that centre-back and goalkeeper trio at all. It has chopped and changed a lot throughout the Euros as well. And we've just, you know, seen as they've gone on the knockouts, they have been a little bit more susceptible to conceding chances there. So Jude Bellingham should be able to do that. He should be able to run past Lenormand, Laporte. He should be able to have the break on them, the pace on them for Foden and for Kane to be playing those through balls from deep. But Kane should be able to as well. Kane's movement, when he's playing at his best, is better than Lenormand's ability to track and mark defenders, forwards all game long. But he's not completely fit. He's not completely sharp.
There's no pace around him either.
His movement is poor, quite honestly. So I don't think it's also a game where Spain are going to have quite as much dominance as would have been the case, you know, with the last generation of team. I don't think that they're quite there yet. Like, England have played worse teams, but they have better possession across the board, let's say. Have they done much with it? Not really. So it will suit England to not have as much of the ball. I just don't think it's going to be like a, 65% dominance of Spain or anything of the sort.
I'm going to push back in a few places. So First of all, Spain giving up chances in these knockout stages to Germany and France, both of whom are better teams than England. And even if England are playing a little bit better than France, England don't have an Mbappe. They don't have that electric pace. That's where you can hurt Spain, is with that electric pace. I thought when Germany troubled them, it was with pace. Spain have played, in my opinion, 3 teams who are as good or better than England. In Italy, Germany and France. Okay. England haven't played anybody nearly as good as Spain.
No, but if there's only Spain who are as good as themselves in the tournament, they can't do it until they play.
But they haven't played anyone near as good as Spain.
Well,
they haven't played anybody as good as Italy. They haven't played anybody as good as Germany. They haven't played anybody as good as France. Like, the Netherlands are comparable maybe to Croatia.
No,
maybe.
Come on. The
Netherlands, Karl, are awful.
Italy were dreadful.
Italy were dreadful in this tournament.
Yeah, so that's
because they were set up poorly. The Netherlands were dreadful in this tournament for the most part as well.
Okay, but
the Netherlands were playing a midfield 2 of Reinders and Schouten, neither of whom would have been in the team had they had everybody fit. Yeah. Schouten wouldn't have been in the squad. Then they introduced Joey Veerman. The other part of that midfield was Xavi Simons. None of them are elite in possession. All of them are happy to give the ball away to you. Nobody in this Spain team gives the ball away cheaply. England are going to find it much harder to win the ball back.
Oh, they will.
I don't agree with you that I agree with you that it won't be a 65-35, but I do think it'll be closer to 60-40 than it will to 50-50. And I think this Spanish team, I think you're underrating them defensively. Given who they've played, they've conceded very little. I think their structure is far better than anything England have seen. Their in-possession ability is far better than anything England have seen. And their front 4 is miles ahead of anything England have seen. And England have conceded a lot of field position to worse teams than this Spain. Like, look at the Denmark game, just as an example. Denmark pinned England back, and if they'd had one game breaker, they would have opened England up. Spain have 3 of them in Yamal, Olmo, and Nico Williams. Like, this is going to be by far the hardest test England have faced. And it's not going to be the hardest test that Spain have faced. If Spain play at the same level they've played at in their last 2 games, I don't see how England raise their game to that level. I think England's best chance is to try and drag Spain down to England's level and have them play in the muck and make this a very, very scrappy game. I think that's, if England try and go toe-to-toe and try and play football against this Spanish team, I think they're going to get obliterated.
Yes, I would agree with that. I don't think they will, but I don't think they've given any indication that they will throughout the tournament try and directly outplay someone. It was a bit more that against Netherlands, I suppose, but that was just a game England would, first half, obviously, when they were playing, that was a game England were just dominant and better in. Netherlands tried to attack. Netherlands are a bit like, in that game, like England will be in this one, is what I'm saying. Netherlands went to have an attack, but left themselves a bit more open. I think England will be intent on doing the same, but not to dominate, not to think that they will just attack every time. I think England will be slower and patient in some parts of the game, and that's...
I think they'll be slower in all parts because they haven't played quickly at all. Wow. At any phase of this tournament, they play a dreadfully slow brand of football. Yes. Other than when Mainu can turn it and break into midfield.
Yeah. Aesthetically, England are crap, and if it was on that, England wouldn't be winning, but it's not, and it's not just going to be about that. And you can't deny or argue against the fact that the way England have won will equally build the confidence in them and have them sure that they can do it again to Spain, just as much as Spain's good performances will for themselves. Like, there's no two ways about it. Just because Spain's football is better, it doesn't mean that they win. And England will think that because that's the side that they're on.
You think that England will take the same confidence from a penalty shootout
from finding away,
Switzerland
away, and from not losing? Yes, because that's what you have to do in a final.
But that only helps you if you go into the last 5 to 10 minutes and the game is close.
It doesn't, though. It helps you when you go a goal down. It helps you when you're in the match. If England are 3-0 down by half-time, fine. Obviously, that has no relevance or bearing. But if it's 1-0 with 20 to play, you don't think that Spain will have made subs and Spain will be sitting off as they did against Germany more? They will. And England will be making their subs and they'll be confident they can have another impact.
Yeah, but
on the game
much rather sit back against England than against Germany.
Well, you can, but that's just just telling you the way that England will be looking at it. It won't be a case of them thinking that they have no chance or that Spain are so much better at football that there's no way to win or anything of the sort.
No, I don't think there's no way to win. Like I said, the way to win is to drag Spain down, make it a really scruffy game, try and grab a goal, and then just slow the game down at every single point. The problem for England, if they do that, though, is that it's what they tried to do in the last European Championship final. But they scored too early and then had to defend for too long. England's best chance of winning this game is to keep it at 0-0 till half-time, get a goal early in the second half, and then start to bed back in and defend and bring on energy, bring on a Conor Gallagher and have him try and harry and press Rodri. He's one of the few players that has given Rodri real issues in recent years. Now, it's not going to be the same circumstances because when he was doing it with Chelsea, he had Caicedo and Fernandes sat behind him, which from a defensive point of view is significantly better than Rice and Mainu. And he also had Nicholas Jackson pressing him from the other side, which England won't have because Harry Kane is a dreadful presser of the ball. Which is why if they get ahead, they'd nearly be better off bringing on Watkins and Gallagher and just trying to pin Rodri in one spot and harass him from both sides. Because you take him out, his teams do tend to struggle because he's so vital in their build-up and in their retainment of possession. But other than... here's the thing. This England team on paper are more than capable of winning this game. My issue is how they're going to be set up by this manager, who is nothing more than Roy Hodgson repackaged with more talent at his disposal and a weaker field to play against. And I just feel like Southgate will go into this with the mindset of, if we can keep it as tight as possible, maybe we can nick a goal. And if we don't, maybe we can nick with an extra time. And if we don't, maybe we can win it on penalties. Whereas I think Spain are going into this game thinking, we're going to win this game. I think England are set up not to lose. And I think that's the wrong mindset. And I think the mindset that you talk about from the games against Slovakia and the Swiss, they found ways not to lose those games. Now, against the Dutch, they found a way to win the game. They also got a lot of help from a very questionable refereeing or VAR decision. Spain have found ways to win games against better teams. They play to win. England play not to lose. And that's where I have a tough time finding England winning this competition.
And that is fine. And it could well be right as well. I'm no fan of not playing to win. You know that perfectly well. And you know that when it comes to cup football...
You have a Sean Dyche tattoo.
Right next to my Tony Pulis one.
I love your Tony Pulis one.
Yeah. Look, I'm just going here with the perception of what England have been and what it will mean for them going into this game. I don't think that England will think that their mentality, their mindset is to not lose. I think it's to win in their way. There's a big difference between the two. And while it might be the same tactical outcome, it matters mindset-wise. It does. It just does. And I know it's not the best. And I know it's not nice to watch. And quite honestly, I don't really care if they win or not, to be blunt. Right at this point, shortly before the day of the final, right now, I don't care who wins out of this.
You just don't want to get another train. That's your biggest worry.
I haven't got to get another train. There you go. I just want it to be a really good game. And I've been trying to think of every angle of how both sides are going to approach it. And I think that the approaches being really, really different might just make this one a really, really good game, just the same way as it was for Netherlands-England semi-final. Not the spectacular match, not the technically or tactically incredible match, but intriguing, exciting, nervy, things happening in it, which are both by being good and by some players not being so good. That's just the level that some of them are. But there'll be fewer of those ones involved here. And I think that the two different outlooks on how to win the game make it a really intriguing final.
Give me a key player for each team. Which player do you think, if they play to their best level, one player for each team?
Realistically speaking? Because Kane, obviously, but he's not going to be at his best. We know that.
Yeah, he's not fit. I mean, he's going to get slated after this tournament if England don't win it.
Yeah.
But it's very, very obvious he's not fit. Now, you would call into question then, should he as captain be having a word with the manager and saying, look, I'm not good to go, but I'll give you 15 minutes and I'll give you everything I have for 15 minutes, but start one of the other two.
Nah, it'd be the other way around. If anything, he'd start and come off same as he has done. And I suspect that that'll be the case regardless.
Oh, I agree, but I don't think he had, the thing is, I don't think he has 75 in him. He's managing himself through that. If you could give him, if you said to Harry Kane, look, you're coming on 75, give us everything you have it'll be a maximum of 45 minutes. Just go out and empty the tank. I think you'd get more out of him rather than saying to him, right, we're going to take you off on 75 to 80. And he's now managing himself through that period of time. If you just said to him, look, you've got 15 minutes here, go out and win us the game or go out and save us here. And he can go out and go hell for leather and give you absolutely everything. I feel like you get more out of him. I agree it won't happen.
Yeah, no, it won't. I mean, you could argue the case that if he started and went out and gave everything, you might get something out of him in the first 15 minutes, and then England do have a lead to play on, and you can supplement the break if need be.
Yeah,
but again,
half time.
Again, we know that won't happen. Regardless of Kane, I'm picking one for Spain. I would go for this particular game. I think I would go with Nico Williams because, Yamal is going to be like super double marks, basically, isn't he? Every time he tries to come inside on that left foot, everyone's stepping out to try and block off the shot or push him across and so on and so forth. Rodri, the whole of England knows about. And so when you go up against him, he's obviously going to be awesome anyway, and you have to find a way to stop it. I think Nico Williams, he's playing, assuming England stay the same shape, which I'm pretty 99% sure they will do, against Saka if he tracks back and stays wide tracking back, who's not a defender, and against Kyle Walker, who's beatable at the far post.
Yeah,
I think Nico Williams is the sneaky match winner there.
Yeah, and it would be fantastic to see, like, from a Liverpool point of view, it would be fantastic to see Nico Williams absolutely rinse Kyle Walker, because the whole excuse for Walker all along is, oh, well, you need him against the likes of Mbappe. Well, England haven't played anybody with any real pace down that left side, or England's right side, in the entire tournament. And now they're going to go up against someone with real pace. And if Kyle Walker can't do that job, then it just makes a farce of the whole thing with Kyle Walker having been in the team, despite not playing very well. Like, in the Swiss game, Ezri Konsa was considerably better than him. And yet when Guehi came back, despite the fact that Konsa is a centre-back, is more comfortable at centre-back than Walker, is not as quick, but he is quick. It was Konsa that steps out of the team and Walker retains his spot regardless. If Nico can exploit that space behind Saka and draw Kyle Walker out and then torch him, Gareth Southgate's going to look like a very silly man. He looks like a silly man anyway with some of the costumes he does wear, but still, I'd enjoy seeing that because it would be redemption for Trent as well, who was made a scapegoat early in the tournament. I don't expect we'll see him unless it's desperation time in this final. And I don't want to see Gareth Southgate win a major tournament, because what's going to happen, Karl, is in 20 years, we're going to have idiots looking back and putting his name in conversations with Alf Ramsey as the greatest English manager of all time.
Okay, well, you know what we have to do? After the Euros, if they do win, we'll record another podcast, we'll bury it in a time capsule, and it can be opened in, 2050 or something like that, and we can remind them all of exactly how it was at the time.
Yes, exactly how fucking shit he is. However, there is part of me that wants to see him win it and get his knighthood, because I think that will guarantee him the United job at some point, which I think we would all like to see. Prediction, Mr. Matchett.
Well, I didn't pick an England match winner, so I will quickly say...
give us an England match winner, yeah.
I think that the one who has to... And I've gone into more detail on this on a pre-match piece, but I do think the one who needs to really be on top of his game, who hasn't so far, is Declan Rice. Right? I don't think he needs to be better than Rodri. I just think he needs to be at his best level. If he does that, then England suddenly have a different thing, a different way to combat Spain, and one of their really good points, but also a better build-up avenue themselves. I think Rice has been really poor for the most part, but it's only one game, and anybody can just play better if they're not injured, and it doesn't appear to be. Prediction? I've been back and forth a lot on this, Dave. You're going to go 2-1 Spain, aren't you?
I am.
I'll go 2-1 England just to give a different result that we go for, and we can get Guy for the decider.
So here's the question. Guy Drinkle.
Yeah.
National pride and England win, or Spain win and your bank balance improves?
Thing is, like, I want Spain to win because I want the money. But I know Argentina will then bottle the final when I wake up in the morning, which will make it worse. I think I want Spain to win, but I think England will because they have the powers of spawn. So I'll agree with Karl's 2-1 after extra time.
Spawniness can never prosper. It would be a loss for... A win for England is a defeat for football.
I'm sorry, but anything is better than Greece winning it, so nah.
This would be the equivalent of Greece winning it. In terms of... Here's the thing. Greece were horrible to watch, like England have been, but that was Greece playing really well and making games horrible. England don't want their games to be horrible. That's just how they're playing.
I think this is like Portugal. I think this is like Portugal 2016.
This would be worse.
So you're saying...
Yeah, that's a good shout, actually.
You're saying Harry Kane's going off injured in the first half and where all those problems are going to be solved?
Maybe. Who's England's Ed Watkins and Tony are too good. They're too good to be Ed Air.
They are. Who's the worst player in the England squad?
Lewis Dunk up top.
Oh, yes. There we go. If England are goal down late in extra time and Southgate has a sub to play with, I would nearly bet on him throwing Lewis Dunk up front. He'll already have Watkins and Tony up there. He'll throw Dunk up there as well. It'll become long ball mania.
He's not made his full 6 subs yet in either of the knockout rounds that gone to extra time.
No, he's been keeping that Lewis Dunk sub in the back pocket. Don't want to give it away before the final, you see. Right.
Quick couple of questions for you then before the final.
Okay.
You're not allowed squad lists or anything like that open. Guy, you're playing as well. Who has made more national team appearances, Dani Carvajal or Jesus Navas?
Dani Carvajal.
I'd say Navas.
It's Navas.
Is it?
Incredibly, Dani Carvajal's only got 48 caps somehow. Navas has 56.
Who the hell was Spain's right back?
Well, Bellerin for about 300 years for one reason and another.
It's little wonder they won nothing in between.
It was a bad decade, wasn't it?
It was a bad decade, yeah.
It's going from very good to very bad quite quickly. Fabian Ruiz or Trent Alexander-Arnold?
It must be Fabian Ruiz.
So I saw this earlier. Fabian Ruiz has 28 caps for Spain.
Oh, I'm
going to say Trent has one more.
I think it might be Trent with that number.
It's 29 for Trent, 28 for Ruiz.
Yeah.
Right. Last one. Bukayo Saka or Aymeric Laporte?
Saka.
Yeah, I'd say Saka.
Laporte was so little because
Laporte was French a week ago.
That's it. Laporte was French, and he only was it 2018 he became Spanish
before the tournament, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he hasn't been first choice because he was injured for a while, and then there was the Pau Torres era.
No, but disgusted.
Yeah, so Saka I think has probably 10, 15 caps more.
No, he doesn't. He does have more, but very, very close. 34 caps for Laporte, only 39 for Saka.
Oh, it's less than I thought.
Yeah. Right, quickly on to goals then. Danny Olmo or Bukayo Saka?
National team.
National team goals.
Danny Olmo.
I'll say Saka to be different.
11 for Olmo and 12 for Saka.
Oh, wow.
Harry Kane or Morata and Ferran Torres put together?
Ooh.
I'll
go the Spanish lads.
No, I'll go Kane. I think Morata's got like mid-30s, and I don't think like it's a thing you'd need to have 30, and I don't think he's got 30. So yeah, I'll go with Kane.
Ferran has 20, Morata 36, so 56 for them too. Kane's at 66 now. So
yeah.
And very, very finally, all the defenders in the Spain squad or all the defenders in the England squad. Trent counts as a midfielder for these purposes, obviously, because that's where he's been playing.
For goals
scored.
Does Jesus Navas count as a defender?
Yeah, ones who are defenders for Spain in this squad. So Navas and Carvajal for the right, Cucurella and Grimaldo for the left, Lenormand, Nacho, Vivian, and Laporte. Those the group for Spain.
Yeah, I'll go Spain.
I'll go England because I think Navas has like 5 or 6.
Yeah,
and I don't think anyone else has more than 1. So I'd say maximum they've got is like 10. So I'll go England by I think they have more than 10, hopefully.
And Guy, you've gone with
Spain.
So Jesus Navas has 5. It's 1 each for Laporte, Nacho, Lenormand, and Carvajal. So that's 9 altogether for Spain. For England, Shaw and Stones have 3 each. Trippier has 1. Walker has 1. Nobody else has any, so it's only 8.
Woo! Trippier only ever scored that 1 free kick goal.
Yes.
That is only England goal. Jesus.
1 in 54.
That's really surprising to me that he's only scored 1 international goal.
Who the hell let Karl Walker score a goal?
Didn't he score fairly recently, his goal?
I don't care.
Not that long ago.
I'd imagine it was a shot that he hit very, very hard and probably took a deflection or 2 to go in. Who did Kyle Walker score his international goal against? Let's have a quick gander here.
Ukraine in a qualifier.
Oh, there we go.
That's why nobody knows, because nobody watches England's qualifiers.
Yeah, 2023. 1 goal in 89 caps. John Stones 3 in 78.
If Harry Maguire was there, it'd be easy pick that.
What Slabhead must have a good.
Yeah, 7.
7. That's
Fantastic.
I'd see Slabhead would have probably been in over Dunk, you'd imagine.
Yeah.
If he'd been fit, so yeah. The question is, would he have started?
Well,
100%.
The question, it'd still matter, but he doesn't.
Yeah. Right, we will leave it there then, folks. An extra long final preview for you. We will have 1 more on Sunday morning for you. And then we'll have a tournament wrap-up at some point next week when Karl has gotten home and recovered from the horrors of the German train system and also spent time with his better half who has been cruelly abandoned for this holiday that he's on in Germany. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.